Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Corinne Coons, the Family Recruitment Manager for the Adoptive Families Association of BC. I'm coming to you from the ancestral and unceded territory of the Clemson people on Vancouver Island. I'd like to welcome you to our town hall on families that fit. The Adoptive Families Association of BC has supported adoptive families for over 40 years and have helped find families for BC's waiting children and youth. We offer a wide range of services from virtual support groups, one-on-one support, workshops, webinars, and education. You can learn more about the services we offer at our website, www.bcadoption.com. We are a nonprofit organization and receive a large portion of our funding from the Ministry of Children and Family Development. I am honored to introduce Renee Basie, the Provincial Director of Adoption and the Executive Director of the Adoption and Permanency Branch of BC. I'd also like to introduce Bev Viveiros, Adoption Consultant for MCFD, and Megan Warkentin, Adoption Social Worker for Métis Family Services. Bev and Sarah are here to answer your questions about families that fit. What makes a good fit for our children and youth waiting for adoption and permanency in BC? I want to thank all of them for being with us today. I'd also like to introduce Brandy Kennedy, one of our family support workers. She will be your host for today's town hall. Now I'd like to pass the mic over to Renee to offer a few words.
Thank you, Corinne, and good afternoon, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here. I am calling in this afternoon from the Cowichan People's Territory. As many of you know, the government of British Columbia has proclaimed November as Adoption Awareness Month. This month is about raising awareness for adoption in British Columbia and celebrating those families who have welcomed children and youth as permanent members of their family. November is also about recognizing that there are still children and youth in foster care who are awaiting a permanent family. Every child and youth in foster care deserves the love and support of a family to grow up in order that they may reach their full potential. The purpose of today's town hall is to provide information on the skills and attributes that prospective adoptive parents need in order for a child to reach the stars. I'm sure that you will get much out of this afternoon's town hall, and I thank Bev and Sarah for being willing to participate. Thank you. And I thank the AFA for hosting the event. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. It's an honor and a privilege to have you join us today. Hi, everybody. As Corinne introduced, my name is Brandy Kennedy, and I'm one of the family support workers at AFABC. I live on the traditional territory of the Dene-za Nation and the ancestral lands of the Métis people here in northeastern British Columbia. I will be asking the panel questions today, but first let's hear from Bev. Would you like to say hello, Bev?
Thanks, Brandy. I am honored to be here as well. I'm calling in from beautiful, kind of rainy territory of the Tsimshian in Terrace, BC. I also like to acknowledge our neighbors, the Nisga'a up north of us and the Haisla towards Kitimat. So I'm super excited about sharing with you today, and thank you for inviting me, and I'm passing it along to Sarah.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name's Sarah Warkentin. I'm a Métis adoption social worker with Métis Family Services, and we're located in Surrey. So that's where I am today on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded lands of the Semiahmoo, Tsawwassen, Katzie, and Kwantlen people. I joined Métis Family Services in 2015 as a guardianship social worker, and around 2017 began blending my role into adoption work as our agency became delegated to complete our own adoptions. So as a delegated Aboriginal agency, our service delivery area is a little bit different, but essentially we're currently providing service to all adoptive families with Métis heritage who reside in the South Fraser region. So that includes Chilliwack, Abbotsford, Langley, Surrey, White Rock, and Delta. Yeah, I'm honored to be invited to speak with you today about this. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Sarah, for joining us. It's a really meaningful thing to have somebody here from one of our DAAs to represent the children. So thank you. So this town hall is going to run for about an hour. All the questions have been submitted in advance, and we hope that the audience members will take away some good knowledge after today. An understanding of what people are seeing as the best fit to be adoptive parents through the Adopt BC Kids program. And if you have any questions after this broadcast, please do reach out to us. The family support team is available to you, and you can reach us at adoptbckids@bcadoption.com on the chat feature through our BC Adoption website, or by calling us on our toll-free line 1-877-ADOPT-07. So I guess we will start with our questions. And the first question that we have is, we would like to adopt a sibling group. Is this faster than adopting a single child?
Okay, so I'll start off by saying that yes, the majority of our children in care are part of a sibling group, and often there's actually quite large gaps in ages between those siblings as well. So any family that's open to that circumstance would be prioritized. For anyone who hasn't really thought about adopting a sibling group, I did want to highlight a few unique benefits. They're really a built-in security blanket for each other, which makes the transition to a new home a little bit easier on them, a little more gentle on them. They have a shared story and shared cultural and family ties that are truly unique to them alone, which can really support a strong development of their identity as they are getting older. And they have a shared knowledge and understanding of each of their birth family relationships and the ways that their past lives and their present lives kind of intersect. At our agency, we consider relationships between siblings to be the most sacred connection. We hope and we expect that our adoptive families will be open to welcoming relationships with their adoptive child siblings, whether those siblings are adoptable or not. And lastly, I just wanted to say that it's important to remember when you're adopting a child from care, it's not a private adoption. You're truly also adopting their family and their culture as your own. So it's something to keep in mind as you go through the process. And over to you, Bev.
Thanks, Sarah. First, I just want to say that it's fantastic that you're looking at adopting sibling groups. As Sarah had mentioned, we do have a lot of the children who are available for adoption and care are part of a sibling group. This is the longest relationship that people have in their lives with their siblings. And so it is the ministry's priority to keep them together. Through your process that you'll be going through with your adoption social worker, you'll be completing what's called the Safe Home Study, and some of you out there may have already started that process. Some of you may not. So basically, it's the Structured Analysis Family Evaluation. That's what SAFE stands for, and it was developed by the Consortium for Children. And this is the assessment tool that the ministry uses to evaluate families who want to adopt children and youth in care. And so through this process, you'll be discussing with your adoption social worker, all of those kinds of things, what you're looking for when you're looking to adopt, and what the adoption and guardianship workers are looking for from their perspectives. It's not a quick process, and so in that safe home study process, the social worker will be getting to know you very well. And so having said that, a part of that process as well is the matching criteria, and so if you're looking for a sibling group, that is one of the things that you'll be discussing with your adoption worker and taking a look at. We do have single children available as well, but as we have talked about, the bulk of the children will have siblings or are part of a sibling group. Sometimes they're not living together, and so part of that matching process, we might want to explore bringing them together, which could take more time so that we can help the children build that relationship and get to know each other, and then work with them through doing that piece. So in any case, adopting through the ministry is not a fast process. There are many things that need to be considered, and I know and I feel that when I've worked with adoptive parents, there's an urgency to be, to be putting your families, getting your families, having your children, and becoming a family, and I feel that with you. But we're very intentional in our moving forward at the pace of the child. So I hope that helps explain, some of those pieces. Thank you.
The next question is sort of similar to the one that I just asked, and that is, I have lots of experience working with children with special needs. Do I get fast-tracked?
So this is a great question. As we've talked about the purpose of this town hall today, we're looking for families that fit our waiting children's needs, and over time those needs can change, and they have. And at this moment in time, a large portion of our children have needs that require parents with a really specialized skill set. So we will be looking for families that have some lived experience demonstrating those skills. And then I think we'll get more specific about what kinds of skills we're looking for in a future question. So I'll just keep that answer short and sweet. On to you, Bev.
Thanks, Sarah. Just to build on what Sarah had said and what we are talking about today, our focus is to look at the children's needs and find families that fit our kids in care. It is definitely an asset in working with any of our children and youth in care. Many have had traumatic experiences, and a lot come with complex needs or from complex situations. Like I already mentioned, we have a very intentional process to place, children with families that will best support them. So the more you're open to, the more your experience you have, the more you're willing to open your heart and take those pieces into consideration. That would be high on the list to be studied, because we're looking for families that match those children's needs.
I think it's important too to note that it's an ongoing learning process. I mean, you're going to learn so much from your children once they're home, but there's so much available out there for training, so you can read up on a lot of important topics, and especially with COVID, there's so much available online to take advantage of. So that's something too to consider. The next question is, in your experience, what types of applicants get their home study done quickly or matched quickly? Another one about being matched quickly.
Yes, we're keeping on theme. Okay, so again, we have to remember this is a slow process by design. It wasn't by accident. And once you get to the home study stage, that process is incredibly comprehensive, and it requires full transparency from our applicants, because we're trying to determine both, is this a safe home environment, and then we're also trying to get an accurate picture of each applicant's strengths and limitations. All of this with an overall goal of a placement that's best for the child and best for the family, so it's not likely to break down and provides actual permanency. So I'm a big home study proponent. I like a good home study, and a well done home study really protects kids and it protects families as well. So it's a process where faster isn't better. Faster is not the goal for the home study process itself. And then if we're looking at matching, once you've been approved, that process can be slower and can be faster, but we have to remember that guardianship workers are trying to decide between what's in the best interest of a child for their entire future. So it's a big decision, and it's important to be patient and comfortable with the time that it takes to get the right placement for you and for the child. Regarding which applicants get matched quickly, another thing I wanted to point out is that, a high percentage of our children in care are Indigenous, and a great effort goes into keeping children within their specific cultural community. And that's both for their benefit and to meet legislative requirements for us as well. Therefore, applicants who do share the same Indigenous heritage of the child are going to be prioritized. That's another thing to keep in mind. Bev, I'll let you take it from here.
Thanks, Sarah, and thanks for bringing up the legislative piece. I was going to mention that both the Child Family Community Service Act and the federal legislation, the Act Respecting First Nations, Inuit, Métis, Children and Youth and Families, both of them look at family first, extended family, community, then out of community. So what we're doing is in line with our legislation, and helping to understand that piece might help you folks out there that are wondering, why do we do that first? So that's so when we look at family, if there's no matches within the family or the extended family or the community members, then we look at more general applicants. And specifically for children and youth who are Indigenous, we would look at Indigenous matches first, and then general matches who are non-Indigenous after that piece. And there's other processes in place that are included, and we have to go through in order for moving forward through the adoption process, which can make it a little bit more time consuming, and because more things have to happen. So when we are trying to decide who to study first, who to study second, we are looking at those pieces. We're looking at those families who will match the children that we have available for adoption. Sometimes we also look at families who have a relationship already with the children. So, for example, if it's if it's somebody in the community that knows the child, for example, could be a student aide at the school who's built that relationship with that youth or that child that they have in their classroom, and they're interested in caring permanently for that child. Sometimes it is a foster parent, sometimes it's someone else in the community. So we want to take a look at all of those pieces. As well, we look at sibling groups, we look at applicants who are interested in adopting older children, or children who have more significant support needs, like medical needs, or maybe a genetic risk factors, diagnoses like fetal alcohol syndrome or autism. Sometimes they have multiple diagnoses, and it's often not just one thing. They can have this and then this, and so that creates more complex needs. Sometimes there's other factors that that are unknown, and so we want people who are open to those pieces as well, that we may not know the information. So then you're likely to be studied sooner rather than later for those pieces. When looking at the being studied first, it depends too on how fast things happen can depend too on you, and how much time it can take in the early stages to get your information in, for example, you know, to either the adoption social worker or your the centralized services hub that does the screening pieces. So it can depend on a few of the factors that are happening in your life as well. So, you know, how easy is it to meet with you and complete those pieces with you through the home study process. So we're looking at a lot of those pieces and trying to be as timely as can be, but it you know, keeping in mind that it isn't a fast process. It takes time to get to know people, for you to feel comfortable in talking with your social worker and you know, really having those deep conversations that need to be had. So those are just some of the things to consider in terms of the process and the time it takes to do that. Thank you.
Thank you for speaking to that, Bev, in particular too about the ages of the children, because we know that over 80% of the children that are adoptable are school age or youth or teenagers. And so when you're looking at a stack of applications and you have people that just want an infant or toddler, then you're possibly going to look first at somebody who's willing to take or would like to adopt a child who's school aged. So yeah, and also the important cultural aspects to consider too. The next question is about birth order. I want to adopt from foster care and I have young children, biological children. Can I adopt children who are older than them?
So my first reaction is yes, absolutely, and please, because we have so many waiting children that are, you know, almost all of them are over 5, and many of those are over 11. And absolutely, if you're open to it, that's something that we are looking for and in need of. And then I wanted to point out a couple benefits of adopting older children, if you may have not thought of them yet. Children over 12 actually consent to their own adoption, so there's a genuine buy-in in the process. They're involved the whole way along. Nobody's dragging them to a new spot in a new environment. The other significant benefit in my mind is that there are often a lot less unknowns about their needs than there are with a 3 or a 4-year-old. The developmental and learning needs of our kids are often uncovered when they attend school. By then, they are likely being thoroughly assessed and strategies and supports are already in place. So you start ahead of the game as far as figuring out what their needs are and how to meet them. That being said, when you're exploring changing the birth order of your child, you really need to make sure you have the appropriate supports for them, for that child throughout the process. And I'll let Bev speak a little bit more about that.
Thanks, Sarah. Yes, I agree. We welcome applicants who want to adopt older kids, and it's a great question. It is really important to consider your biological children in this process. You want to ask yourself a few questions, like how would your oldest child feel about not being the oldest child anymore? Sometimes family placement disruption can impact your biological children as well as the child coming into your home. And like Sarah said, some extra supports might need to be considered and put in place for both your birth children and the new child coming into your home. You want to also ask, how would a teenager fit into your home, for example? Has the potential adoptee been an older sibling before? So do they have some experience with younger kids? And how might they relate with that? What influences might they bring? Would you be able to manage high-risk behaviors if those started to pop up with younger children in the home? What would your expectations of them be? So you really want to think about what would work best for your family and for your new family, either, both the children that you have in your home already and the potential child joining your home. Thanks, that was an excellent question.
Is it true that all waiting children have special needs?
So I guess that would depend on your definition. In my mind, by the very nature of having come into permanent care, absolutely, all of our children have at the very least experienced that unique trauma, and that can manifest in endless amounts of ways. Other support needs that are common with our kids can be related to physical health, genetics, substance exposure, experiences of abuse or neglect, or multiple caregivers. So there's a large variance for how these experiences present in each child, and they're also likely going to change throughout their lives as they grow. But I would say the answer to that question is yes. And I don't know, Bev, if you have more to say about that.
You covered it very well. Thank you. Wonderful question. Like you said, it really depends on your definition of special needs. And I mean, every child will have had some experience with trauma and attachment disruption. And again, some more than others. We want to also take a look at each person, each child comes with their own genetic background as well. And one we may not be fully aware of. So there might be some things that come up out of the blue that we weren't able to give you any information on. They also have their own personalities and their own challenges and their own ways of dealing with challenges in their lives and dealing with their experiences. So different people respond to different things that have happened to them. So there's many different things to consider there. The ministry is working more and more now with family and extended family members to care for their own children. And, we're putting more supports in place and families are pulling together to parent children. So, and this is all great stuff and this is really good. But this means that sometimes the children that do come into permanent care of the ministry are older and do have more complex needs, including, medical, being medically fragile or physically cognitive or have mental health support needs than in the past, for example. So thank you. Great question.
The next one is, will I still get approved to adopt if I do not want to parent a special needs child?
Okay, so my perspective on this is that your approval isn't based on the child that you're seeking, but it's on our assessment of your ability to provide a safe and loving home, period. However, it would greatly impact when and if your home study is started and when and if you're matched with a child. If your skill set and abilities don't match the children that are available, then matches aren't happening. I don't know if you have more to add, Bev.
My answer is very much the same as yours. We are looking for families that match the needs of the children that we have in care. We've said that several times already. And so again, if you could be a wonderful family and have lots of love and care in your heart, and you would likely be approved to, if go through the home study process and be approved to adopt. It would be the matching piece that would be a challenge, because those young children without special needs, or even older children without special needs, that's not usually what children in care experience and have. So we have to look at what families match our children, and that would be who we're going to be studying first.
And the next one is, are there physical or mental health conditions, minor criminal convictions, or addictions that would exclude me from adopting?
Yeah, this is a great question. As a passionate home study practitioner, I would say the answer is no, because everyone and everything is an assessment, and it's assessed on a case-by-case basis. And I can't think of a condition that couldn't be mitigated with a strong support network. We want to see solid plans for medical or mental health emergencies, but on its face, a specific diagnosis or a specific condition would not rule someone out from adopting. Bev, do you have anything else?
Yeah, I would like to say that every adult over 19 years of age is welcome to apply to adopt in BC. We don't discriminate based on your physical or mental health conditions or on your history. What we do is the Safe Home Study assessment, which Sarah was talking about. And we explore all those areas when we do that assessment. We explore your physical, mental health, your criminal history, your addictions, all of those pieces get explored and discussed during that home study process. So your adoption social worker gets to know you super, super well. And the questions that he or she will be asking you will be things like, what has your healing journey been like? Are you accessing supports, and what does this look like? What are your limitations? How do you feel about your physical or your mental health condition? How long ago was the event? For example, if it was a criminal offense that occurred, when you were 20, just out of your parents' home, and it's been 10 or 15 years since then, and nothing has come up, and you've, taken responsibility for that piece, and you've done some work around that. We take all of that into consideration, and we take a look at that. So those are some of the pieces that you would be talking with your worker about. The best advice I can give is that be honest and be upfront with your worker. And if there are any outstanding issues or concerns, the home study can be paused, and you can take some time to go and work through that stuff, whatever that is, if it's still outstanding for you. And then once you've come to that place where the social worker is, and you have had that conversation, that things have been worked through, and you have some supports in place, or those kinds of pieces, then it can be resumed. It's not a black and white situation in a yes or no. You can't move forward without having, if you have something that in your history. I was just going to say, we're actually looking for people who can relate. So some of those pieces in your history are helpful in working with children or youth who've also experienced some of those pieces. The important piece is that you've worked through that, and you can be a support then for the child or youth. Thank you. Sorry, Brandy.
Oh, sorry, Bev. That's something actually that we hear from prospective parents a lot is, oh my goodness, I had a terrible childhood, or I spent time in foster care, or I myself aged out of foster care as well as one of the other members of our team. And it's something that people sometimes think that they have to have a perfect past, and they're quite surprised to hear the opposite, that you're looking kind of for some of those things so that you're getting a better idea of how people can combat stress and scary situations and how they've overcome some of those things. So yeah, that's really good. The next question is, if an applicant had an abusive childhood, oh, here we are, and doesn't have contact with their extended family, is it still okay if they apply to adopt? If yes, is there a required psychological evaluation?
Yes, so in the same vein, we absolutely, if this person is open to adopting a child from care, it's absolutely worth applying. An applicant's history or their relationship with their family alone would never preclude them from being a qualified adoptive parent. We want to keep children safe, however, that's our number one priority. So part of our assessment is always whether you have a difficult childhood history or not. Part of our assessment is looking at how you were parented and the ways in which you are parenting differently or plan to parent your children differently, because we all take bits and pieces from the way we were parented and we leave the rest. Your home study practitioner is really going to want to understand how you've processed your abuse and how your history of abuse impacts you today. And they'll spend a lot of time on this. And it's important to know that digging into these events is not about ruling you out, but it's an evaluation. We're evaluating the likelihood of a placement of a child triggering or re-traumatizing you, the likelihood of a potential breakdown, and making sure that it's a safe environment for a child. Regarding the psychological evaluation, a practitioner wouldn't typically require that, but we would want to connect with people in the applicants network who can speak to and kind of corroborate how they're doing now. It's more than you just saying that it's not an issue, and that you're coping well. We want to get some evidence from outside parties as well. So that could be a counselor, a doctor, a community member, for example, will reach out and make sure that everything is the way we think it is. But from my perspective as a home study practitioner, I think if this person has created distance from abusive or toxic family members, this is a sign of strong personal boundaries and resilience. And if this person has created their own village of support and healthy people around them, related by blood or not, this is a huge strength, and they could be excellent applicants for our kids. So again, lived experience, not a negative. Well, that's what we're looking for. We want examples of times where you've had to demonstrate your skills, because it makes our assessment a lot more clear. On to you, Bev.
Thanks, Sarah. You said that so well. I'm not sure how much I can add to that. Again, just from what I said earlier, if there is something that comes up for you during your home study process, or even the matching, like, you know, when you're looking at matching with children that we have, and you're seeing you know, pieces, and maybe you are getting triggered, we can pause things and have that space and that time for you to take to work on some things that, you know, come up, because you know, we think sometimes that we've worked through this or that, and then this little being comes and brings it all back up again. So, you know, or even just reading about those pieces. So we want you to be in good contact with your adoption worker, and have that, you know, continue with that relationship and be able to have those conversations. There's a lot of supports out there that they can you know, provide to you or assist you with in terms of working through any of those challenges that you might feel like you're facing when you read some of the information you might read, or when you're talking with them about your history or your past, and maybe sometimes something, you know, just comes up, and sometimes it's small, you know, we can you know, talk with you and work through what you need from where you're at. So that's, yeah, that just, Sarah, you covered pretty much every other point that I was thinking about as well. So thank you.
Next question is, I've heard many waiting children have fetal alcohol spectrum disorder and or autism spectrum disorder. What type of skills would be needed and how would I gain those skills?
So I would say the most important thing for me would be having some education around it and a willingness to learn. And that doesn't have to be formal education or a degree, but we want you to be willing to read and watch and experience the lives of children with FASD or autism. Both are spectrum disorders, so by nature, there's a large degree of variance in how the conditions present themselves in our kids. But some specific skills that I think would be key are patience and humility. You want to remember that it's not personal, and what worked today may not work tomorrow, and having some patience and grace for yourself and for them. Flexibility is important. Advocacy skills are really important. Your knowledge of local resources, knowledge of sensory strategies would be great. An ability to implement structure and predictability within your home is really important. A support network of other children with FASD and autism, a willingness to ask for help and be willing to welcome professionals into your home and into your life at times, and definitely a sense of humor. These kids are often the funniest, brightest, most charming little things. So a sense of humor is important in life too. Where to gain those skills, we recommend, this will probably get repetitive, but reading related books, joining groups online, following organizations or for resources. Autism BC is a good one. Asante Center is a good one. Talking to people with lived experience, and that can be people with FASD or autism or parents of people with FASD or autism, and volunteering in your community. These are all great ways to build up some of those skills that we're looking for. On to you, Bev.
Thanks, Sarah. Similarly to what you've said, or working with what you've said, understanding the specific diagnosis, like you talked about, for example, FASD, knowing that it can affect, all the areas and or domains of the body and brain, depending on when in utero they were affected and how much. So, we're talking about like adaptive functioning, executive functioning, attendance, attention, affect, language sometimes can be an issue, but also remembering that it's a disability and not an unwillingness to learn. They're not trying to be bad or trying to make you angry. They are, this is part of their disability. They remember one thing one day, and the next day they may not remember that thing you taught them yesterday. So each day is a new day. And every child is different. Every person responds differently. So it really depends on each unique individual. Be aware of yourself and your abilities and your expectations. You may have to let go of some of those expectations that you have for your child. You may not be able to, they may not be able to graduate from high school if that is one of your biggest wishes for them. With support, many of them do, but sometimes we have to really take a look at what our expectations are as adults and let some of those pieces go. Understanding what triggers you and what you can or cannot handle. I think Sarah talked about patience, structure, understanding, advocacy. You're going to have to do some serious advocating for your child or youth through their lives, through the school system, for community supports, those kinds of pieces. So understanding what's around you and what you have access to, what you may be able to get put in place to support your child or youth. Speak to professionals, take the opportunity to sign up for different workshops. I was just got an email this morning from a child's song, and they have a free workshop coming up in the end of this month around prenatal exposure to alcohol and trauma and attachment losses. So if you're looking for things out there, there are things out there. Your adoption social worker will be able to be a wealth of information in those realms for you, as will your AFABC support worker. I'm sure Brandy can point you in if she's your worker, point you in many directions for various workshops and webinars that are helpful in that area. Then taking also a look at what supports you have for yourself as the parent, because you're going to be stretched. You're going to need somebody to talk to. You're going to need a break. So who can you, reach out to? Who's in your support network? Would you consider pausing your employment and focusing on building your relationship with your child? Can you do this financially or physically? Can you those are things that you'll need to consider, and how you would feel about that. So just, taking a look at some of those pieces, asking yourself some really hard questions and being honest with yourself and with your worker around those pieces. Thanks.
The next question, I think that you covered it really well just in this question that you just answered already. But the question is, if I don't already have children, what can I do to be a better applicant? Are there workshops or courses I can attend? You covered that really well already. But I guess I could just add and just say that there are so many things that are available online if you follow different groups. There's AFABC, we have our webinars that are free on a huge variety of topics. There are books that you can get from your local library. If they don't have a book that you want, you can have it brought in. And there's just so much out there. Since COVID hit, I have actually been able to attend a lot of really high level presentations that before I would have had to travel to attend conferences and whatnot. There's just so much available. But the key areas that we always ask our potential adoptive parents to focus on are attachment building, trauma, and learning how to build attachment with children. So those are the big key ones. Do you want to add anything?
One of the things that I would just like to add to that as well, I know sometimes the question comes up around fostering or providing respite, and that can be a really, really good way to get to know some of the children that we have in care. Rather than just reading about them, you actually get to do some of that, day-to-day care for them, building those relationships, talking with foster parents. I do want to caution though, because sometimes there's an idea out there that if I foster, I'll be able to adopt faster. And I just want to point out that adopting, like foster parents do adopt children that they've had in their care, but it doesn't mean that it's a faster process. It's not a shortcut. Respite can be a great opportunity to help the foster care providers that we have. But fostering is meant to be a short-term transitional system designed to return the child back home. So if you're looking at providing respite to get to know some of the community, some of the support people in the community that that might work into a relationship for the future for you, that's awesome. But just remember that fostering isn't necessarily a shortcut to adoption. For example, I had when I was an adoption worker, I had a foster to adopt situation, And the family had received this child in their home when the child was a baby. And this is a teen adoption that I'm working on. So that's been, 15 or 16 years that they've had the child in their home and built that relationship. And like we've already talked about, processes have happened, family, looking for family and those kinds of things. And it finally came to the best match was a foster to adopt. So I just wanted to pop that piece in there and bring that piece up as well. Thank you.
Thanks for doing that, Bev. That's the thing too that we often will hear from people that are looking at fostering for that reason, and not realizing that they're so different. They're so different. Most of the children will go home, and that you are kind of expected to provide care and love for this child, support the extended family, and kind of wait through the process while MCFD has to do the family finding and the cultural matching and all the other pieces that come before a child is ready to be adopted or before a foster family is considered. So yeah, thank you very much, Bev, for bringing that up. Next question is, I saw the MCFD video about needing to be flexible and patient. What are some other attributes that MCFD or the Delegated Aboriginal Agencies are looking for in applicants?
So I'm happy to speak for what I look for as an adoption social worker at an Indigenous agency, specifically a Métis agency. And that is, number one, applicants who are sensitive and compassionate towards birth parents and their struggles. It's really important to us. Number two, applicants who are open to continued relationships with their child's birth family and are genuine about it and proactive about it. It's really important for our adoptive families to remember that your child's family is your family now, and it comes with whatever it comes with. And then lastly, applicants who will continue participation and presence within our Métis community even after an adoption. So something that we do differently sometimes is that after an adoption is completed, we continue to reach out to our families. We're not checking in and spying, but we're reaching out to offer opportunities. So if we have cultural events or programming or workshops, whether it's for kids or for caregivers, any resources, any funding we become aware of, anything our families can utilize, we do continue to reach out. And at our agency, and as I'm sure it is with other Indigenous agencies, we through ceremony adopt the adoptive parents into our community as well. So whether you've been present in the local Métis community or not, you're part of our family and our community after you adopt one of our kids, and we really like to see that ongoing presence. And I think it might sound overwhelming, but from my experience, the adoptive parents I've worked with and the kids that we've had adopted actually want to be reached out to. They want to reconnect with us. They enjoy updating us on their lives and staying connected. So yeah, that's what we're looking for. And I'll let Bev speak now.
Thanks, Sarah. I would say that MCFD is looking pretty much for the same things as well. And I would also add that regardless of, like, if a child isn't Indigenous, we would still want those pieces to be in place. We would still want you to be, able to build relationships with birth family members through openness agreements or other communication pieces that have been developed through the child's life, like through, with their community that they grew up in, with their friends that they have. So those are pieces specifically of we have some, you know, pieces like cultural plans that are developed for our Indigenous children and youth in care with their Indigenous communities. But if they're not Indigenous, I would say that we would still want you to be able to be open to having those relationships with community of the child and with family members of the child. I would also add that, you know, engaging and open personality, knowing your own strengths and weaknesses, knowing what's best for your family, like we mentioned earlier, being honest with yourself and with your social worker, with your limitations and with your wishes, dreams, and desires. Knowing that it's okay to say no if it isn't a match, and being able to look at that honestly. And then knowing that this is a child-centered process, that we are, you know, as we've mentioned several times already this noon hour, we are looking for a match that best matches the children that we have in care. So knowing that that's where we're coming from and that's where we're moving to matching and looking at matches through that lens. Thank you.
Nice. And the last question for today's town hall is, dun, 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 dun. I've been waiting for a match for 2 years. What are some things I can do while waiting?
So I'll just start by saying I understand how hard this wait can be, because you're not just thinking of the time since you've been approved and waiting for a match. You've also probably been thinking about and considering even adding a child to your family through adoption for months or years before you even apply. So we recognize it's a long process. It is a long process, but I'd recommend you try and stay positive, stay involved in your community, educate yourself wherever you can, whenever you can. Spend time talking to other waiting parents often for support, so you don't feel like you're the only one going through this really unique time. Access your support network, like we talked about, your family, your elders, your friends, and then be sure to continue to reach out to your adoptions social worker, because they're there for you. That's all I have, Bev.
Thanks, Sarah. My answer is very similar to yours. You know, keep a positive perspective, take care of yourself, take care of your family that you're with. Waiting can be stressful, as Sarah said. We realize that, and we know that you've been waiting probably for longer than we even anticipate you've been waiting. So having someone, you know, your spouse, a social worker, your AFABC support person, a counselor, somebody, friend, community member, to debrief with and talk about your experiences and your frustrations with. You know, as you said, Sarah, there's lots of support workshops out there, support groups, education and information available. You know, one of the things that I do suggest to potential adoptive parents who are in that waiting period is working on some things like you know, photo albums that you would be sharing with that child or youth when you do get that match. You can sometimes do some videos of your community or your home or your, you know, things that, you know, you're working on, so that those are ready, that those are, you know, that you know, you can, when you do have that match, it can happen very quickly sometimes. And so it's like, okay, here's what I've prepared. Sometimes also having, you know, journaling your own experience can be a really therapeutic and great way to remember that time frame, and also share that time frame with your child or youth down the road. keep in touch with your social worker. They are a wealth of information and often a great support to you. Ask questions. There's nothing silly. We always welcome questions from you. And they can point out some really good ones that are in the community and that might come across their desk for you as well. Take time to learn about the kids in BC, who they are and what their needs are. We have some really, really great kids waiting for families. So just getting to know who those kids are. Thanks.
I'll just add to that as well that AFABC, we do have a waiting parent group that meets every month online. All of our supports are online right now because of COVID, but you can go on to bcadoption.com/events and you'll be able to see when the next groups are meeting. And there is a specific group for waiting parents. As well as a peer networking group for people who are parenting kids with complex needs, and then another group for people who are looking for information and resource sharing if they're parenting kids that have complex needs as well. So we have those. We have a lot of Facebook groups as well that you can join and get some peer support from all over the province. You can reach out to your family support worker, me if it's the North, the Kootenays, or the Okanagan, Angie if you're on Vancouver Island, or Lucy if you're in the Coast Fraser region. Any of us will support anybody, but those are sort of the areas that we're specialized around as far as what our local resources are. The education department at AFABC has a ton of really good workshops that you can take. That's also where you can find the free webinars. Some of the upcoming workshops that the education team has are Safe Babies is one, and foster parents also enjoy that one, as well as trauma-informed parenting, teens and tweens, other types of workshops like that are available through education. You can sign up for e-news. Our comms department is awesome at collaborating and getting some really good information sent to you every month. So there's a lot of different things and a lot of different ways to stay connected within the adoption community. So that brings us to the end of today's town hall. And thank you to our panel and to everybody who's watching. Again, our family support team is available to answer any questions, and you can reach us by emailing adoptbckids@bcadoption.com. You can go onto our website, bcadoption.com, and use the chat feature to talk to somebody. And we also have a toll-free number. That's 1-877-ADOPT-07. And as well, you can reach us